I understand it would be useful to give you some idea of what I mean within these workshops. But I have to admit, I'm reluctant to put answers into screens because there are 1,000 questions in every workshop. It's probably a good idea to do your workshops with 2 or 3 people per group, perhaps even 4 per group, because then you can organize the group to look for different things and compare results. You really do need paper and pencil to make the reading exercise work. The Psalms are very complex. I do have a couple of sample solutions here, though, for sessions 1 and 2. And I expect every time I teach this course, there will be different solutions, different answers, different applications, and different questions that arise. Not because there's no focus, but because there is a multiplicity of good possibilities from which we can choose our emphasis one time that we read a psalm and choose a different emphasis the next time that we read a psalm. It's just part of the nature of these beasts. So here's an image of Psalms 1 and 2 after I had done my drawing on them. You'll probably have to pause the film here to have a look at it because I'm not really sure I want to point it out. Although you can certainly see the opening and closing frame, and you can see the 5 words that are used in sequence between the 2 psalms, and lots of other things. The relationship between Psalms 90 and 91 is not as strong as the relationship between Psalm 1 and 2. But there are hints of it. In verses 1 to 9 of Psalm 91 are pretty tightly tied together with the word refuge, and the habitation of Psalm 90 occurs at the end of that section. There are a few other connections that you can trace between the 2 psalms. Psalm 90 itself has a threefold frame: God, Adonai, and the word to be in reverse sequence in the last verse 17. So here is the beginning of Psalm 37. You can also see from this how I named the chapter. This would be the first time in the book of Psalms that the word burning repeated, and the word for exquisite delight. Notice possess the earth, this particular section being one that is quoted or very closely in that compact poem of the Beatitudes. It could equally well be possess the land rather than possess the earth. The word is the same, eretz, in the Hebrew. And here's Psalm 95, the standard canticle for Venite in the Anglican tradition, but we always leave off the second half, and I think it's probably a good idea if we don't leave off the second half, considering this is an important aspect of the warnings in the book of Hebrews. There are quite strong connections between the first half and the second half, as you can see, and also a very strange pair of words in the lower left there. These people wander in their hearts. Levav chem, a word that should be one in the Hebrew that is split into two and creates a unique double word, chem. And the very next line, v'chem, lo yad'u darakai, they do not know my ways. Also, you'll notice the connection between verse 7 and verse 11, the word im. Im is a direct if in verse 7, and an implied no in verse 11. And one might almost translate, as one would think in English, as if they would ever come into my rest. Now, Psalm 111 and 112 are two gems, very closely crafted poems, clearly crafted together. Strong internal connections in each one and to each other, and very strong connections to Psalm 1, as is shown in the tables, in the chapters in the book. And one of the questions I asked was, what does this tell us about incarnation? It tells us that it's the will of God that those who fear him should become like him in truth and uprightness and righteousness and standing and graciousness and compassion. Anyway, there are many questions worth pondering here. As you know, I'm a bit averse to answers that come too quickly. But this is a delightful pair of poems, and I have attempted to do them with alphabetically, following the Hebrew alphabet. Mary Herbert has done them magnificently following the English alphabet. And here's one more example of strongly connected psalms. Over half the words of Psalm 87 are words that were used in Psalm 48. Here's about 26 of them. There only are 54 words in Psalm 87, and I left some of the words out, like God and the divine name, which are fairly frequently used in both. I think I can count perhaps as many as 12 of these words that are used in the same sequence in both Psalms. I would imagine that's a fair indication that whoever the children of Korah were, they knew each other. They're both Psalms of the children of Korah. Anyway, you get some ideas of how I go about looking at the words of a psalm in order to understand things about it. So there's just a few partially worked examples